On today's show, Mark Cuban gives new reasons as to why Steve Ballmer's deal with Aspiration was not salary cap circumvention. What points did he make that interested me? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA. Been a Clipper fan for 20 years. Been covering the team for 5 on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Head on over to FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Ladies and gentlemen, we have more news and more content on the scandal as we need to have right now. It's the hottest topic in the NBA. Mark Cuban continuing to go back and forth on Twitter, writing full-on essays in defense of our LA Clippers. So shout out to Mark Cuban. He gave maybe one of the most interesting theories. I don't even want to call it a theory, but just logical explanations as to why Sandberg and the Kawhi Leonard deal happened and stuff like that. I also have another theory that I oversaw in some circles being talked about that I wanted to present as well, and overall get to the point about Sandberg that Mark Cuban's trying to say. Now, again, I want to preface by saying that this is not me just making episodes to defend the Clippers. This is just me giving arguments on the discussion on both sides till we reach a verdict. Now, of course, very soon, the transition of this podcast is going to be towards the actual basketball, what's going on in training camp, media day, all that kind of stuff. But right now, we got to talk about it. It's the talk of the town. So Mark Cuban, right, continues to go on his tirades on Twitter. And one of the things that he said that I found interesting was that he responded to a tweet that was saying the same thing. Kawhi Leonard didn't do any marketing. It's so obvious. No tweets, no promotion. I think everybody agrees that Ballmer got scammed and this company is, crooked and whatever. But what a lot of people are saying is prove that it was not salary cap circumvention. Why did Kawhi Leonard get paid $28 million to do nothing? What company does something like that? So Mark Cuban goes, it can also be true that you had a crooked founder that controlled all and aid aspires and dictated to the execs what he wanted done. And he said, do this deal. I love Kawhi Leonard. He's my favorite player ever. We just did a $300 million sponsorship with the Clippers. I want to be able to tell all my friends at the Clipper games that we have a deal with him. So get it done. The same guy would send tens of millions in deals just to do what he thought made the company look good. He knew his accounting was fake. His revenue was fake. The one thing that was real was that he could say to everyone he met that he had a deal with Kawhi Leonard. So why didn't he put Kawhi Leonard in ads or anything? Because his marketing people didn't want to use Kawhi Leonard, or because he didn't care. I don't know. None of their consumer marketing ever worked anyway. This company spent about $150 million in marketing in a year to do far less in sales and far, far less in margin dollars. It's not like their marketing people had some magic way of driving sales. The guy gave them a ton of money. Maybe he was right to sign Kawhi Leonard. The marketing department was wrong not to use him. And as it turns out, just a few months later, they stopped the consumer side of their business and ended up getting rid of it, end quote. So a lot is, there's a lot there. But the main thing that I see from Cuban is his reasoning of, saying that, I love Kawhi Leonard. He's my favorite player ever. I mean, I don't know if that's the stuff that's coming out of Sandberg's mouth. I don't think that would be the stuff coming out of Sandberg's mouth. But this is, and Mark Cuban's reasoning saying because his marketing people didn't want to use Kawhi Leonard, so that's why he didn't put him in ads, or because he didn't care. I mean, look, that's not a very concrete answer as to why they would not use him in anything. But again, Mark Cuban's whole overlying point is that Sandberg does not, he doesn't make sense. So then this was what I felt was the best explanation yet that he's made, at least that Mark Cuban's made. So he wrote a huge tweet, and I'm going to break it down. So start quote by saying, Here are my thoughts on some of the key elements. And just to be fair, I will do another post taking Team Ballmer. Number one, Sandberg obviously faked sales. This is all in the Department of Justice releases, and I'm sure there is much more that wasn't reported because government just does what they need to get the admission of guilt. Two, he played up to the biggest fish he had on a hook. It's not like funds, Oaktree or others can turn on a dime and put in more money. Ballmer could. So, end quote for a sec. Let's just stop right there. He's saying that he just wanted to take care of Ballmer. He wanted to be in the good graces of Ballmer because he wanted to take advantage of him. He's scamming him. He knows that Steve Ballmer is super rich and that if he gets Steve Ballmer on his side, he could get money whether the company is on the verge of bankruptcy. If, of course, he keeps up the illusion or kept up the illusion that this company is legit and actually like an eco-friendly company, Steve Ballmer on his side, maybe giving a sponsor to a star player, that is something that would keep Steve Ballmer in his good graces. Continuing the statement from Cuban, quote, remember, everything happened after the letter of intent for the merger occurred. So the details in the merger agreement basically was the playbook for Sandberg. You can read the S4 filed with the SEC. I linked to it in one of my posts. Once he believed he had Ballmer on the hook, he had to be all in on taking as much cash from Steve as he could. And it also might explain why Wong got in. He could move quick. Apparently his daughter worked there and presumably connected to the mission. They had him covered on all angles. And another note, before Wong invested, Sandberg paid $10 million to keep the merger alive. And it's TBD if anyone inside the company knew that is what $10 million was for. So as far as everyone not named Sandberg was concerned, the dream was alive and well. End quote. So what Mark Cuban is saying there is that no one knows that this is a fraudulent company yet. The jig is still going on, right? So Wong and Ballmer investing is because they're just investing. Now, the whole thing about Wong should know because his daughter was involved in the company, that's the part where it gets fishy. And all that Cuban says about it is apparently his daughter worked there and presumably connected to the mission. What? Oh, I guess the environmental mission. But my thing is, wouldn't the daughter tell Wong that they're going down the drain? Although you could make the argument that Wong is trying not to let it go down the drain. So I guess that's the defense, that he's trying not to let it go down the drain. People know that it's struggling. People don't know that it's fraud. That's the thing. So Cuban's point is he wants to get the most out of Ballmer, right? Now, 3, and maybe the most important one yet, what's the best way to play up to the one guy who can keep you out of jail? You become a sponsor and you sign their most important player to a very lucrative endorsement deal. All NBA fans want to make an issue about the timing. If you pay a guy quarterly, no matter when you give someone money, it's going to be close to when they did or didn't get paid. So I don't see that as an issue. The confirmation to me was, as I put in italics in the previous post, is that Kawhi's agent was actively involved. He called about a late payment. Sandberg told execs he wanted to cover the agent's expenses on the deal too. Why is this an issue? There are very specific rules about registered agents participating in CBA violations, including decertification, which would be very, very bad when you only have one big contract player you represent. End quote. Let's talk about that. So Kawhi Leonard's agent, he would be risking his one major client if he is found guilty of doing something like this. Now, what Mark Cuban is stating is that Sandberg, to kiss Ballmer's ass and keep him on his side, gave his best player a sponsorship deal, which again, technically is not cap circumvention. Just because a sponsor of a team ends up sponsoring the best player on said team in a partnership does not mean that Ballmer is directly funneling money to Kawhi Leonard through Aspiration. So I honestly think that might be the best point that Mark Cuban has made yet, is that to get in Ballmer's good graces, to get him to keep investing money, he did help Kawhi Leonard by giving him money for doing nothing, just to keep Ballmer in his good graces. That's the best case I've heard, the best alibi I think I've heard so far, especially if the agent has so much to lose, right? If he's only manages Tony Bradley and Kawhi Leonard, Kawhi's agent, and he gets found guilty of this and he gets decertified, I mean, he's risking his job. So Cuban continues by saying, 4, You can go back to my other post on my timeline and get more details, but here's what it comes down to. Everyone was greedy. The merger was valued at $2.3 billion. Like everyone who has ever been involved in going public, you drink the Kool-Aid, you envision the stock doubling, tripling, 10 timing, and more. 10 timesing and more. And you do the math in your head to see what your total would be. It's human nature. I know I've done it. Everyone from Sandberg to Ballmer to Oaktree to Wong to you name it wanted their big or little piece of that soon-to-grow pie. When the Aspiration Bank program didn't work, I'm guessing Kawhi Leonard was given the contract to help with this. Sandberg had the vision. No one else did. I know a lot has been written about the marketing department not liking it. Sandberg didn't care. He saw that all the previous celebs got them to the point where they put that business on hold, stopped spending anything. It didn't work. And again, Sandberg needed his whale, Ballmer, to be there for him. He obviously was going to spend the money he stole the way he wanted to. He needed to get his $157 million in cash so the merger would have that $415 million by hook or crook. So, end quote. Let's stop right there again. Essentially, he is saying the same. He is saying that Ballmer still thought this was a real thing. He didn't think it was fraudulent. Sandberg was in his good graces, had his star player in a sponsorship deal. He's working with Ballmer. He's trying to get everything he can out of him. And those previous celebrities, nothing happened. They put the business on hold. This, though, could give him benefits because it's Steve Ballmer. So that is what was being said. Now, the final point was, he said, 5. Within the above framework, the $10 million from Ballmer and $2 million from Wong makes sense. Sandberg dealt with investors. He obviously did an amazing job convincing Wong that in spite of the auditors quitting, there was a reason why Interprivate was still willing to do the merger and give them $258 million and turn their newly public merged SPAC from a $2.3 billion company to a $23 billion company. That it's only $2 million bridge till Ballmer jumped in with 10. So essentially, he's saying that it's not, people are just looking at the $2 million from Wong and saying Kawhi got that exact amount. That was just part of a larger investment from Ballmer and Wong to put in so much money, and including Sandberg putting in $56 million. So, that's it. So that is the Team Ballmer side, according to Cuban. But coming up, going to talk about another theory that I saw that might prove Steve Ballmer's innocence to some degree. I got to tell you a little something about Skims. When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always had issues with underwear. Fit, comfort, just finding the right style for me. Skims changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. I tried the Skims boxer brief and I'm hooked. These are perfect for my active lifestyle because they move with me, never lose their shape, and stay in place all day. Whether I'm running, playing basketball, I'm sweating a lot, I want to be comfortable. They're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select my show in the drop-down menu that follows. All right, so talking about Mark Cuban saying that Steve Ballmer was the big fish for Sandberg. Sandberg tried whatever he could to keep Steve Ballmer and his constituents in his good graces so he could keep investing money to keep his scam alive, and Ballmer didn't know anything about it. That is the angle that Cuban is presenting, and I think it's a fair one until proven otherwise. Now, here is another theory. There was an SEC complaint against Joe Sandberg, right? And in August, the Securities and Exchange Commission alleged that Sandberg inflated the company's revenue and duped investors using Aspiration shares to take out more than $100 million in personal loans. The SEC's complaint pointed specifically to 2 investors, including one who bought $50 million in shares between September and December 2021. If Steve Ballmer is willing to tell the government that he was scammed, then and he's circumventing the salary cap. Why would he report that to the SEC? You see what I'm saying? It's just an interesting angle. And I looked at the document that was listed here, the SEC, the litigation complaints, and it does have on page 11 that there was between September and December 2021, Investor One purchased over $50 million in Aspiration stock. Before Investor One made this investment, Sandberg touted Aspiration's success and profitability in the corporate ESG sector to Investor One's chief investment officer in person and over the phone, making materially false and misleading statements to Investor One in the process, aka Steve Ballmer. As an example, Sandberg touted how Aspiration's ESG business represented a large area of profitability for the company. And I'm going to keep reading the part where it talks about Ballmer. It says further, on February 17th, 2022, shortly after the investment and as a lulling tactic, Sandberg emailed Ballmer's CIO. It doesn't say Ballmer. I'm just using him as Investor One because I think that's obviously who it is because the 50 million. Emailed Ballmer's CIO with a subject line, analysis of Aspiration 4Q results, noting that Aspiration produced 100 million of revenue in 2021 and touting how Aspiration was growing as fast/faster and a lot more efficiently and profitably than projected. And Ballmer's CIO considered these representations about Aspiration's successes in the corporate ESG sector and rapid growth to be extremely important in Ballmer's decision to purchase Aspiration stock, as it made the company look incredibly well financially. So there is this stuff about Ballmer, right? That doesn't mean he's innocent. It doesn't. But if Ballmer is that person, which I think he is, it's hard to say he was circumventing the cap, because before he goes to the SEC, he would probably want to take Kawhi Leonard's $7 million off if he was actually guilty. If he's actually guilty and Kawhi Leonard has an outstanding balance of $7 million that is used to circumvent the salary cap, then that would be a huge oversight from Steve Ballmer to leave that money there. He should have just paid him off, in this time. So if Ballmer outs them to the SEC, and then Sandberg is sending Torre at Ballmer and the Clippers as cap circumvention so he doesn't look as bad. So it's a very interesting angle to think about, that if Steve Ballmer is complaining, because here's the thing, Ballmer and Oaktree put in $250 million. Investor 2 in the complaint put in $250 million, which was what was reported. So it's very interesting. If Ballmer outs them to the SEC and he leaves the $7 million on the table, that is very risky, right? You would think that that's just normal money left over from Kawhi's deal, and Ballmer just is worried about the fact that he got scammed. So, and here's another thing. These sources that Pablo's using that's saying it's cap circumvention, like, why should we take these anonymous sources to the bank so much? I get it. I get that they're just workers. They probably got scammed too. They thought they were working for a company that was actually, a real thing. So what's their motive in this? Why would they lie about this? That's another angle you can look at. It's like, why would they be lying about cap circumvention? The Clippers are guilty. Stop denying it, fool. I know I'm going to get a ton of those comments, but I don't care at this point. We're making content. We're just talking about the angles, right? I'm not just going to say the same thing that we're guilty every time, even though we might be guilty. But, Pablo's sources might be real, but it's like, the thing is, why are they just, saying all this now? Why not go to government guys? Not instead of Pablo Torre. I don't know. So it's a huge scam. It's a huge scam. If Ballmer and Wong reported these guys to the SEC, which it sounds like they did, it's an interesting angle, because if they find that Kawhi Leonard money, I mean, that looks suspicious, which, obviously it has now, but it gives off more of a vibe that Ballmer is not, like, hiding anything, right? So again, as Mark Cuban said, I think the moral of the story here is, if Steve Ballmer did this, He's not as smart as we think he is, regardless of how rich he is. If Steve Ballmer did this and did not have that $7 million taken off the books, he's made a huge mistake, and he's honestly like been sloppy with this. I'm not condoning it by any means. If he cheated and we cheated, then I think that we should, face some consequences, and that's unethical, and that's not what I want to see from my team. But the reality is, even if you are trying to do something like that, you would think Steve Ballmer would cover his tracks a little better. So the fact that his tracks are so not covered, some might say he just got scammed. There's an explanation to all of this. But the biggest thing that everybody's wrestling with is, why would Aspiration and Sandberg pay Kawhi Leonard $28 million to do nothing? And coming up, going to be talking a little bit more about Joseph Sandberg and what it all comes down to at the end. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and we are at week 3. FanDuel is making sure you're ready to kick off with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And right now, my Rams are 2-0. The Chargers are 2-0. Rams got a big game against the Eagles on Sunday morning. The Eagles are -3.5 in Philly. The Chargers are playing a division game against the Broncos at SoFi. They are -3, also with a 2-0 record. And as I said for the Super Bowl earlier this week, the Ravens are +500 number 1 odds. Number 2 is the Buffalo Bills at +550. Then you got the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles at 3rd and 4th at +700. And not too far behind, you got the Chargers, Rams, and Niners at 7, 8, and 9, highest Super Bowl winning odds. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So at the end of the day, the biggest thing this comes down to is Sandberg being a fraud, Sandberg being a crook. He is just a menace. At the end of the day, he is just a menace. By the time Aspiration signed the merger agreement, this guy had already started creating fake deals and revenue, and had already gone Bernie Madoff and borrowed what would have been $145 million personally using forged documents. So he had to do whatever he could to make a big splash, and what would drive public stock. And what's better than driving public stock? Getting Steve Ballmer to invest a bunch of money, one of the most successful guys in the world. But, and part of it is they couldn't close the merger unless he had $450 million. So he was going to need big fish in there, Ballmer being one of them. So at the end of the day, Sandberg is a scammer. He is is in jail, I believe, with this stuff already. So the main thing that Mark Cuban is trying to say is the motive of a scammer is just to get as much money as he can. And the point is, and some people were saying, why would a scammer willingly give $28 million to Kawhi? Because if he feels that would make Ballmer happier and Ballmer would invest more, then he was going to do that. And the thing is, again, a sponsorship deal from Aspiration has nothing to Kawhi, has nothing to do with Ballmer paying Kawhi. The whole thing is you have to prove, unless you go with the circumstantial evidence, you're going to have to show the link between Steve Ballmer and the Clippers paying Kawhi Leonard through Aspiration. If it's just Aspiration paying them and you're making all these conjecture statements that, the Clippers paid him this amount and then he got this amount 9 days later, you're still going off of circumstantial evidence. And that is enough to ding the Clippers, but is it enough for Adam Silver to want to ding the Clippers? That's a big thing, especially with the All-Star game being hosted at Intuit. So this investigation is probably going to carry on into the season. But until the season starts, we got training camp to talk about. You better freaking believe that I am going to talk about every single thing, the Mark Cuban stuff, the new Pablo Torre incident, a story that came out. So I'm just going to keep on going with these episodes because why not? Why not? It seems like you guys love hearing about this topic. We got it's the talk of the town. It's not even just the talk of the town, it's the talk of the league. So we'll see. Clipper Nation, and of course, there's everybody against us now. Everyone against the Clippers, us against the world. What do you think about what Mark Cuban's saying in the comments? Clipper fans, are we innocent? Are we guilty? You know, I know everybody else thinks we're guilty, but for the other side, the people that think we're guilty, what do you think? What is your rebuttal to Mark Cuban's comments? To the Sandberg paying Kawhi to have Ballmer in his good graces. And then if Ballmer is the one filing the complaints, would it make sense for him to circumvent the salary cap or file those complaints if he's doing something sketchy is the point. Because they could easily find that money. But anyway, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, LA Sports, and NBA content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell on the road to 8,000 subscribers before the season starts. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.